20-foot addition that I poured a concrete slab. That's a wooden floor with a crawl space under it. Okay, go ahead. Lights, camera, action.
No, you don't need to tape me, you just listen, that's good enough.
Very nice. See the little projections there where the oil lamp is?
Yeah.
There's one on this side too, and that's the way they illuminated their music when they didn't have power in the church. Just came from a church over north of Dodgeville.
How old is that?
Well, we don't know for sure. I haven't really knocked myself out to figure it out, but we think it's around 100 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, the one my mother had, she bought when she was a girl. She was like 18 when she bought it, and it was old when she bought it. And that would have been back in the 1930s.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the woman had had it for a long time, and she was just looking to get rid of it. And I'd have no idea what she'd paid for it. You can bet it wasn't much in the 1930s.
No. My grandma Westby had a pump organ in her home, and I always used to play it. And then it went to another member of the family, and I don't think they realized what they had, if you know what I mean. And so I always thought it would be fun to have one. So when this came up, a lady in Stoughton had it, and they were moving, and so I thought, I guess I'll buy it. I don't know why, really, because I don't really need it, but it's just fun to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
is that good? Okay. Have a good time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Keith Archie, and I am the historian for Troop 514 in Evansville, Wisconsin. Our troop was chartered in 1919 and has a long, rich history. It is my pleasure today to have the opportunity to interview Mr. Dave Fellows. Mr. Fellows is a member of Troop 514 when he was a boy and earned his Eagle Scout badge in 1949. He also served as Scoutmaster for our troop from 1959 to 1962. Thank you for speaking with us today, Mr. Fellows.
Glad to have you. Been kind of an interesting exercise, I think.
How did you become interested in scouting initially?
Well, back when I joined, the joining age was 12 for Boy Scouts, and I had not gone through the Cub Scout program. Being a farm boy, I didn't do that, but when it came close to my 12th birthday, why I had kind of hinted to the parents that I wanted to be a Boy Scout rather than to enter 4-H like my sisters had. And so that's just what I did. I joined the troop and was happy I had done it that way.
Where did you guys meet?
Well, at the time we met on the 3rd floor of the Evansville City Hall. And I don't know if you've ever been up there, but it was quite a neat place to have our meetings, really. Climbed a lot of stairs, but you know, young as we were, why, we could beat the Scoutmaster up there anytime.
What kind of activities were you involved in scouting?
Well, hiking, camping, camp cooking, advancement, swimming, pioneering. Those are some of my favorite and probably most needed tasks, because as soon as you aspire to become an Eagle, you've got to be pretty accomplished in all of those things. And I kind of caught fire early about wanting to go for Eagle, and I did. I made it.
Do you recall other members of your troop?
Yeah, I wish I had the photographs that I took at summer camp that have disappeared somewhere over the years, much to my chagrin, so that I could identify more of them. But I did have some very close friends that I went through the race to Eagle with, and three of them beat me by a year. It was Shannon Ferguson, Jim Kaltenborn, the son of a photo studio person in Evansville, and Zeke Deininger, whose real name is Jack, but we called him Zeke. And then after he moved to Fond du Lac, his brother Gary took over the name Zeke. So if you hear a Zeke Deininger in Evansville now, he's not the true Zeke, and I never forget, or never let Gary forget that. They all made Eagle before I did by a year, and I made it a year later.
Who was your scoutmaster, and what can you recall about him?
Well, he was a great guy. George Greenway was his name, and he had two sons, and he and his wife were both very active in the scouting program in Evansville. And George was a unique person in that he was very much an individualist. He chose not to affiliate very closely with Indian Trails Council, which had its offices in Janesville. And he wanted to be known as the Scoutmaster of Troop 14 of Evansville. And didn't attend the Camp Indian Trails camps, but had his own summer camp at Lone Rock on the Wisconsin River every summer for 2 weeks, and that was priceless experience for us, Boy Scout troop. I don't know, we probably had close to 40 members in the troop at that time, and it was really a fun time. And George and his wife and another fellow, Bert Powers, were the camp staff, and Bert and Mrs. Greenway did the cooking, and George did all the hustling of us scouts through our different programs every day.
Can you tell us about some of your favorite memories from scouting?
Well, I spoke a little bit of my favorite memories just now about summer camp. That was really a cool place to be because you felt like you were out in the boondocks for sure. And but George ran a tight ship, and he didn't allow anybody to get out of hand very far without straightening them up real fast. And we were forbidden to go into Lone Rock, which was a couple of miles up the road from us, on our own without his permission. And one night there was some guys that sneaked out and went into town, and when he caught up with them, that was the last time they saw Lone Rock for that 2-week period. They had their nose to the grindstone. They peeled potatoes. They did everything else that they paid big time for. But yeah, that was a fun place to be. We had a nice backwater where it was safe to swim, and canoe and things like that. And George ran a fantastic summer camp.
What can you tell us about being Scoutmaster for 4 years?
Well, yeah, I was Scoutmaster for about 4 years after I got out of the Navy. See, I had gone, after graduating from UW-Madison, had gone into NROTC flight training at Pensacola, Florida, and Hutchinson, Kansas. And I was on duty out of the state of Washington from Whidbey Island with Patrol Squadron 1, which was a anti-submarine warfare squadron of 12 aircraft. And my dad's health failed after I'd been out there a couple of years, and he called and asked if I could come and help him keep the farm in the family because his health was failing. And so I gave it a lot of consideration, and I realized that I really did owe him a lot and that I should do that. And so I gave up, asked the Navy if they could let me out sooner than I would have normally. Well, Rusty Robinson, who was the scoutmaster of the troop at the time, got word of the fact that I was coming back from the Navy by the end of 1958, and that he wrote me a letter and said, would you take over the troop when you get back from Whidbey Island, Washington? And I thought, wow, that sounds interesting and exciting. And so I wrote him back and said, yeah, Rusty was his name, Harold Robinson, Rusty Robinson. I'll do that. So when I got back late '58, I said, you got to wait, give me 2 or 3 months to get reestablished here and on the farm, and I'll take over after the first of the year in '59. Which I did, and then I had 2 excellent assistants, Gordon Kasda and Francis Herbs, that helped me run the troop for that 4-year period. And then I had to leave in '63 because I was just getting too involved with the farm, and my dad's health was failing more, and I just had to give up something, so I had to give up the scoutmaster's job then. But it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it. Had some good, hard-working guys, and we still reminisce a little bit today of the few that are still around Evansville that were scouts at that time. It's fun.
What did you like most about being a scout?
What did I like most about being a scout? Well, boy, it's hard to pick out a favorite, but I guess I did enjoy most everything that came down the pike. I had some favorites, of course. There was Indian lore. I got into that headdress over there is one of the products that I made when I was into Indian lore, and yet I never merit badged Indian lore. I don't know why I didn't. As I think back, how did that ever happen? There's a peace pipe laying there on the table that I bought the bowl from a company in Minnesota that lives near Pipestone, where that stone comes from that the Indians used to make those. And then I made the stem for the pipe, peace pipe, myself out of a ash limb, burned a hole through the center of it. And that was part of my Indian lore too, and that bear claw necklace there. I've got a photo of my right behind you there, Keith, of me and my Indian regalia, and then the one on the right is after we built this house in '61. Kate, that just played the organ for us, and I had a costume party to go to at the Baptist Church in Evansville, and we dressed up in our Indian stuff. And I kiddingly refer to the one on the left side as brave looking for a squaw, and the next one on the right, brave fine squaw build big teepee. But I haven't captioned it officially yet. I don't think I'd get away with that. But yeah, it was, Indian lore was a very big favorite of mine. I have a photo here on the table. That little one and the big one are the same. That's a group of my friends from Camp Indian Trails, and it's captioned on the back of it. I've got a little one there that you guys can take with you. It's also captioned on the back, and that's a really great bunch of guys that I learned a lot from. Swimming, life saving. There's one of those is Dave Himley. You can see from the caption on the back which one he is at a later time if you want to. But I'll give you that small one. You can enlarge that if you want to yourself. Swimming and life saving became very important to me because that was where my weakness was in reaching eagle. As you're aware, to reach eagle, you're required quite a number of badges, and at that time there were 13 required: first aid, life-saving, swimming, personal health, public health, cooking, camping, athletics, civics, bird study, pathfinding, safety, and pioneering. And as you've probably been aware of during your scouting experience, they're constantly dropping merit badges and adding merit badges every few years in the program. I don't know how many are available now, but I've got a couple of my scout handbooks over there that you can check them out yourself if you wish to. And it's funny, those are two different age scout books, handbooks. One is in 48, that one that's the birch bark cover, and the other one is just 8 years later in 56 that my son Bill purchased. And he was a scout for a little while, but he never really took to it like I had, and he kind of gave it up. But there's different merit badges in that one than there are in the earlier ones, and some are in one that aren't in the other. So I'm sure that by today's comparison, it's probably vastly different than what it was in any of these manuals. Okay.
What do you remember about Boys Life?
Well, I subscribed to it all the while I was in Scouts. I thought it was a great magazine. I kept my whole collection of them for years and years, and I don't know. It's another one of those things that got lost somewhere. I don't have them anymore, but I really enjoyed Boys Life magazine. I'd heartily recommend it. I haven't seen a copy of it lately to know it, if I know what I'm talking about, but I have a hunch it's still a pretty good magazine, isn't it? You feel?
Were you a member of Order of the Arrow?
Yeah, I am. I would have put my sash out there, except that on the table, just so you could see it. But unfortunately, the closed moths perforated it so badly that it's in the display cabinet that we'll look at later over here. But it's so pathetic looking. I put it out yesterday. I thought, no, I don't think that is very good looking Order of the Arrow sash. But yeah, that was another neat spur that I got as to why didn't I go for Indian Lower Merit Badge? Because I met all the requirements, but I just never went through the formal passage of the requirements for it in front of a counselor so that I could earn it. But yeah, you can see here, this photo shows how many of us are wearing Order of the Arrow sashes there, most of them. There's an interesting character in this photo, Rodney Katz, and I'll show you which one he is. It's this one right here. third from the left on the bottom row. He just passed away. Very, very close friend of mine. About the same age, and he has been running CB&K Supply in Janesville for all the years that I've been farming here. And he's an outstanding scoutmaster in Janesville, and has been a scoutmaster ever since I knew him of this troop in Janesville. I can't remember what number it is, but he was the most incredible scouter I think I've ever known, for his stick-to-itiveness and the high regard that his troop committees and his scouts had. They had a memorial service for him just recently in Janesville, and I was unable to go to it, which I was sorry about. But yeah, he was a great guy, and he was an Order of the Arrow member too, of course. Okay.
Can you tell us about camping when you were in Scouts?
Yeah, when we were in Scouts, George Greenway in our Troop 14, camping at Lone Rock, usually had 4-man wall tents that with no wooden floor under them. Camp Indian Trails had a wooden floor under them, and they were a little bit bigger, I think. And aren't they 4-man tents too, I think, at Indian Trails?
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
And I don't know. I think some guys slept in 2-man pup tents at Lone Rock too. But they did have a few 4-man wall tents. Then we had to have a ground cover in order not to absorb too much moisture if it rained. Okay.
What was the worst thing that happened to you while you were in Scouts? Or while you were a Scout?
The what?
What was the worst thing that happened to you while you were a Scout?
The worst thing that happened to me? Well, I never really had any serious mishaps. I guess I had some disappointments that I didn't, there were certain merit badges that I didn't didn't manage to complete. Some of those were, as I already said, Indian lore, radio. I ended up building radios about the time that I got my Eagle, so it was too late to get it. Then weather, signaling, canoeing, photography, nature, dairying, coin collecting, botany, beekeeping, aviation, all were badges that I wish that I had gone after before I ran out of my age restriction of 18 to continue to get merit badges. But yeah, I think I've got 31 badges on there, and enough to get a couple of palms, but I only had one palm awarded. It was the bronze palm, and I think the silver is 10 and the gold is 15, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't have ever achieved the gold, but I should have had the silver, but I never got awarded it. So, you know, you could kind of run out of time quite often. And by the time you're 18, you're either a senior or you're already out of high school. And that's when things really get busy and hectic, as you guys know who are involved in Scouts now. You're running into that. In this photo right here, I'm the same age in that photo that you two are now. You're probably at least 17 or 18, aren't you? Or close to it.
16 I am.
16?
Yeah.
And you're what?
15.
15. So you're getting there. You're
Where
about
are you in this?
to that stage. What?
Where are you in this?
I'm right here. I'm the guy with the broad brim felt hat. Does it look like me? Yeah. But I don't know, I think our uniforms were similar to what you're wearing today. I don't have my shirt, or my long pants. I don't know what happened to them. I don't have this brim cap hat anymore. I don't know where that disappeared. But you know, when you're raising 2 sons and 2 daughters, weird things happen to some of your possessions. And I don't want to blame them in retrospect, but I have a hunch that they had something to do with their disappearance. But yeah, it was this field cap that's laying there on the table is the only one that I've got left. Do you still wear those?
I don't see too many people right now. Maybe like people that work there.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, yeah, well, this is my tenderfoot cap. I think you could sew any patch on that you wanted to, couldn't you? If you, as you advanced, or don't they have it nowadays?
No.
What differences do you see between scouting then and now?
Well, you know, the differences that I might know, I really am not in a position to know that, an answer to that question. I know what I went through, of course, and I have a hunch that what you're doing today is similar, but you probably do different things in different ways. And so not being a scouter in recent years, I really can't say. I was a scouter for about 30 years after I quit scoutmastering. But I was just a merit badge counselor for the 3 citizenship merit badges, the home, community, and nation. And I had, I don't know how many, maybe 15 or 20 guys come to me for over those years. Not nearly as often as I thought I might be busy, you know, with that sort of work, but I enjoyed being a merit badge counselor. That's about the only scouting work I did after I retired from scoutmaster work. But the program constantly is changing a little bit, I'm sure, and that's about the best I can say. I really don't know what is going on today.
How does scouting help shape your life?
Oh wow, you know, that's a profound question, and I'll give you a simple answer. These things have to affect you if you take them earnestly, and you strive earnestly to live by the scout oath and the scout law. And you know, to this day, I declare to people when I'm doing this or that, well, they say, why are you doing that? And I say, because I want to be prepared. That is probably one of the biggest things that axioms that it comes out of Boy Scouting that I consciously think about anymore, is wanting to be prepared no matter what it takes for whatever I've got coming up. Now, like preparing for you gentlemen to come here today, I wanted to be prepared. Does it look like I'm prepared? I hope so. And I'm proud to say that you came to visit me like this. I think this is a terrific thing that you're doing, and you're obviously prepared to do what you're doing today, and that's a good thing. and live the scout oath and law, you can't go wrong. It keeps us on a good track.
Okay, he stopped it there.
Many you might guess. Maybe you know a lot of these, but what do you think this one is, Keith?
Life saving. I don't know.
I got a cheat. Personal health.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Personal
I was
health.
gonna guess life-saving.
What do you
too,
think
so.
that one is?
Pioneering. Or Indian river.
Well, you'd think so, but it's pathfinding.
Mhm.
What about this one?
I have no idea.
Citizenship. That's athletics. See the foot
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna
with the
think of
wings.
that.
That's poultry keeping. What do you think that one is?
Cooking.
Cooking. Very good. And that one?
Fire building.
Yep, pioneering.
Or pioneering. Oh.
This is woodwork. This tells you right on it what it is. What do you think? What does that say? Conserve.
Oh,
Conservation. And that one never got sewed on. I got it pinned on there. My mother chickened out, I guess, on that one. That's public speaking. The gavel and the pounding the desktop. What's that one? Leathercraft. That's an Indian moccasin. I used to make Indian moccasins. I used to make other leather things. There's a backpack in the other room with a leather harness that I made. Oh, that's easy. What's that?
Photography.
Stamp collecting.
Oh, stamp
Oh.
collecting. Oh.
Stamp collecting. Then public health. Isn't that a pretty one?
yeah.
That's first aid. That's firemanship. Those are fire horns. That looks like a plow, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's farm mechanics. Not a very mechanical plow, I don't think. That is electricity. That should be, it looks like it should be horsemanship or something, but they call it animal industry. That's camping, of course, yeah. What you guys are engaged in right now in school.
Scholarship.
Scholarship.
That one's life saving.
That's life-saving.
Swimming.
Swimming. Forestry. Bird study. That's beef production. What do you think that is? Chemistry. Carpentry. Farm, home, and its planning. I think that's a pretty one.
Detailed.
Safety. Wood carving. And then of course you're well acquainted with all the different tenderfoot, second class, first class. That's life, star, eagle. And this is where when I got my eagle was in 51. January of 51. Cook kit, canteen, the cup under it. You still have those? Like that? No.
Oh, not exactly like that.
This has a handle that comes around.
That's cool.
Huh, yeah.
And it's also a mess cup. I mean, sometimes soup, you put soup in it too. I wouldn't want to put soup in that one anymore, but it's as old as I am, I guess. Do they still have an Explorer Scout program?
Yeah.
Well, this is, they just call it a Scout Field Book, but I've always referred to it as the Explorer Scout manual. Have you ever seen that one before?
I don't think that one specifically, no. I know there's venturing scouting, which maybe is what that is today, just a different name.
What is it called now?
I think venturing or venture cruise. I think that's probably.
Yeah, this is my homemade Indian headdress. I think we need to have Keith model this. Oh, it fits you like a pea. I made that out of turkey feathers. My dad grew turkeys for about 15 years commercially to sell. This is a beaded band that with a Thunderbird in the middle that I beaded, and I put all these together. They have little leather loops on them on the shank of the feather, and then you wrap them. You put in a little of these fluffies too and tie it all together and mount them on this skull part of an old felt hat. You look good in that, Keith. Anybody else want to try it on?
No, thank you.
Why?
That's fine.
Okay. Let's go in here.
Stored. This is a cherry cabinet that I made to store all these things in. I guess this goes up here. Here's my pathetic looking. You see, the moths got their joy out of that one. This is another pipe stem that
You make that?
I bought this in, I can't think right now. This is a cattle horn that I was going to make into a powder horn, but I never finished it. These are armbands that go on here with a streamer that hangs down. It's in my photo up there of my wife and I are playing Indian. This is another beaded band that I did. That was something I enjoyed doing for quite a long time. Here's some of my leather work, making moccasins. This is a powder thing that's just an antique powder horn. Here's the handbook for the order of the arrow. Are either of you ordered the arrows?
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, both of us are.
Yeah. These are some of my other things. I had my own Cessna 172 on the farm here for 25 years. But I sold it in 1999. That's my Evansville high school letter sweater. And there's Fellows Station, what I wrote a book about, and that's my Fellows Airport that I flew off of the farm from and to, and it's the plane. That's what I flew in the Navy when I was there in Washington. There I am in the top picture up there by the prop there. And these are other family photos.
What year did you earn your letter in?
50 and 51.
And what did you earn it in?
I was in football those 2 years. I wasn't good in basketball or baseball, but I lettered twice in football, my junior and senior year. There's another E underneath there with a 1 bar on it, I guess. I built both of these out of walnut that I had bought from Miles Armstrong years ago. And this bookcase right here, the whole, both of them, the upper one and the lower, I built those. Oh, I wanted to show you this library up here a minute and call your attention to it. This is my collection of American Heritage periodicals, which are, for years they were published 6 times a year, bi-monthly, with a cumulative index for them, which makes this an almost unparalleled history research library of American history. It's all American history. And I've got almost every periodical that was published for almost 60 years now, except for about 25, I think I'm missing in those 3 shelves and this one down here. And I heartily recommend that if you ever get really interested in American history, and there is some little, kind of obscure history occurrence that you hear about that you'd like to know more about, please come to me and I'll help you look it up in the index, or I'll hand it to you and let you look it up. And then you can find the story about it in one of these periodicals. I guarantee you 99% satisfaction. It is an astounding library. Now, American Heritage also published a lot of special editions, and I've got practically every special edition on these 3 shelves that they published. If you just look at the titles of some of those, they're tantalizing if you're interested in history. And I'm an American history buff, and I just can't seem to get enough of it. Now, don't ask me if I've read all of those, because I have not. But I know pretty much what's in them. And of course, these are, more or less one subject or one episode in American history that they're written on. These are just kind of a grab bag of topics of American history in these periodicals. But they're terrific. They're just terrific. This is kind of an interesting display too of, that's my mother by the library in Evansville, the front door there of the library, when she was just graduating from high school in 1923. And that's a dress that she wore back in the 1920s when she married my dad in 1926. And a granddaughter of mine is over here wearing it when she was slim enough to get into it. She isn't anymore. In fact, she's pregnant right now. She and her husband are living in Milwaukee. But she looked really good in that dress of my mother's. So this is my grandfather's Knights Templar, great coat and sword. And this sword is, I got its a pillow or something in there so that I've got enough of a waist to hang the sword on there too. But well, I won't tell you the whole story, but I just recently acquired that sword about 1.5 years ago at an auction, and it belonged to this fellow that's above my grandfather. The lower one is my grandfather, who had a sword like that, but he gave it to another side of my family. And so when I saw this one at an auction in Stoughton, I bought it, and that's the fellow that it belonged to at the time. This is my Navy flight jacket, and this is my dress blue Navy uniform. And then there's my flight khakis underneath the flight jacket. And that's Kate pinning my wings on me in Hutchinson, Kansas in 1956. And there I am, that's a Navy photo. Well, both of those were taken by a Navy photographer. Getting into an SNJ, that was when I was in primary flight training. Over here is the country school that both my wife and I went to. This is Franklin School that she went to over west of Cooksville. And this is White Star School, about a mile up the road where the Wayside is, that I went to. And these are my classmates, and those are her classmates. And there's my dad is in this photo. He was coaching a local kitten ball team, and they won that Janesville Gazette kitten ball trophy back in 1922. And there's my dad feeding turkeys up above there. Okay. Had enough self-guiding books of this museum that you can go through. And if you ever have a craving to do that, I'd be happy to, let you go through and you can find out about all of this stuff in here. I have had groups of people big enough to come in here that it's hard to shepherd them through it and lecture as I go, or not lecture, but explain everything as I go. I'd rather, with a large group of people, have them hand them a booklet, and then they can go through 2 by 2, and they can.
You are prepared, aren't you?
What?
You are prepared, aren't you?
Yeah, you bet. I'm ready for anything. See that tub hanging on the wall over there by the stove, guys? That's my baby bathtub. My 2 sisters got it first because they're both older than I. So I don't know if they beat it up like that or if I did. But I guess I should probably own up to the fact that it was mostly my destructiveness that caused that problem. Yeah, there's lots of history in here.
Keith, you got it on?
Okay, well, thanks for doing this interview with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. And thank you, Micah.
Yep.
You better turn it on so you can hear yourself being thanked.
Yeah, it's
Thank
still
you,
on,
Micah.
don't worry.
Did
Yep.
a good job.
Thanks, you're welcome. Thank you.
And Bill Hartgy, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for doing this.
Hi, my name is Keith Hartry, and I am the historian for Troop 514 in Evansville, Wisconsin. Our troop was chartered in 1919 and has a long, rich history. It is my pleasure today to interview Mr. Bill Brunsell. Mr. Brunsell was a member of Troop 14 when he was just a boy and earned his Eagle Scout badge in 1939. Thank you for speaking to us today, Mr. Brunsell.
Well, you got some more to say, or is this a Lego line?
Yeah, sure, I'll just ask questions. How did you become interested in scouting?
Oh, we had a barber in town. His name was Art Devine. He had a place just below the Night Owl. And he had 3 barbers there because men shaved in those days. And they had to have people to shave men. So I'd go and sit with my father, and Art talked. I was about, I suppose, 11 or so, and Art, I said, "Are you going to go to scout camp?" And I said, "Well, I'm not a scout." Well, I said, "Come to my camp anyway." He had a camp over on Lake Kegonsa, and he had all the scouts over there. And we slept 3 to the bed, and he invited me and Jerry Phillips and Prent Eager, and so the 3 of us went over, even though we weren't old enough to be scouts. And it was a wonderful experience. That's how I got there.
Where did the troop meet back then?
Pardon?
Where did the troop meet back then? Like,
We met we went to City Hall, the upper part of the City Hall where the present justice of peace is.
What kind of activities were involved in scouting?
Well, in those days, camping was a big deal, and we camped winter and summer. Summer camp, of course, is much more important. You can camp several places. We built a winter camp in Blackman's Woods back of our farm. Our farm is where it used to be where we had the farm where the pig is, and Blackman's Woods was to the north. And we built a winter shack, and then for summer camping, we camped all over the place. Our favorite was to go to county fairs, and we'd go to, say, maybe attend 3 or 4 county fairs. And we'd put up a tent, stay there overnight, maybe on the weekend, sample the cotton candy or whatever they had to eat. And of course, we were always invited to eat at other places, and we'd have maybe 3 or 4 scouts would go, and the Review was kind enough to, the fellows that owned the Review paper were kind enough to loan us a truck or whatever we need for paraphernalia. So we were able to go almost everywhere. We had a very active troop. I think we had, 40, maybe more scouts. I know we had 4 patrols. And go ahead.
Do you recall any other members of the troop?
Oh yes. Well, I had divided into sections, and I had what was called a skunk patrol, because we owned a skunk. And we had my brother and I and Albert Holmes, Art Phillips, that'd be the policeman's grandfather. No, the policeman's father, Art Phillips. Oh, we had Jerry Fellows, Judd Purcell. We had quite a lot of guys. Oh, the Sherman brothers, Eddie Sherman and his brother, I've forgotten what his name was. And we were all in the same patrol.
Who was the scoutmaster back then?
George Greenway, well, started with the barber, Art Devine, and then the fellow that took over was George Greenway, and he was a printer for the Evansville Review. He had 2 sons, Ted and Gene, and of course he was interested in scouting for his sons, but he also was allowed enough time off from his job so that he could participate in scouts.
Do you have any favorite memories from scouting?
A great deal. I mean, nowadays you've got TV, you've got car, you've got access to any city within 100 miles. And we, of course, to go to Janesville was a big event. If you were going to Janesville, you announced that in advance, and then everybody that wanted to go would go on, and you choose whoever you could go, and your mom drove, and you spend the day or a half day in Janesville. It was a big deal. So camping, or establishing camps in cities that had fairs, like, well, Rock County. We had a fair here in Evansville, but then it was transferred to Janesville. And Jefferson, and I've forgotten all the places, Walworth, that was where we did our activities. And what did we do? Well, you got another question?
Yeah, you attended the 1973 National Jamboree in Washington, D.C.
Yes, I did. And
1937, not 73.
I brought back a journal that I gave to my nephew. My brother's brother had a son who also is an Eagle Scout, and this is a jamboree, which was this book consists of the papers that took up the everyday activities. There were 27,900 and some scouts. Bob wrote me a note. He knew the number. And my brother Bob. And we're invited to attend. You guys are free to keep this. 37. June 29th to July 9th, 1937. Scouts came from all over, from England and France and Germany, and there are a lot of occasional scouts from Japan and China and so on.
What did you like most personally about being a scout?
Well, the activities, because I said it was really the only game in town, because we did not have the other activities. We had scouting, and it appealed to us because most of the boys in those days were outdoor people. I mean, you didn't have any indoor activities, and in the summer when school let out, you had absolutely no activities after baseball in the spring until fall. So camping, getting together. We also, one of the things, we were divided into patrols, and I happened to lead a patrol. And what we would do is go in competitions. We'd get some person to drive us, and say there'd be a competition over the store in Magnolia. There used to be a store on the corner there with an upper room that was pretty spacious. And we'd go there and do semaphore and rope making, knot tying, first aid, and it'd have one or sometimes two or three of those activities, and well, usually two or three, and you just compete in those, and the one that did best would get some kind of a commendation. There was a lot of activity for us anyway.
What were some of the requirements for Eagle Scout back then?
Well, the only requirement that I really remember was that you had to advance through the ranks. Came in as a tenderfoot in a second class, and then a first class, let's see, Star, Life, and Eagle. I don't know if that's the same as it is today. This uniform is, I don't have my uniform. This is my brother's uniform, and on it he's got his scout badge, Star, Life, and that's as far as he got. What you had to do for it were, there were various things. We had wood carving. I don't know if they still have that.
I don't think it's required, but yeah.
I know what I did was carve a portrait of somebody. I got Mrs. Gibbs to kind of supervise my drawing on a piece of plank, and then I took a jackknife and worked out the details and created a face and painted it and so on. And of course you had the athletic merit badge. Another thing about scouting, the thing that we liked the best was going to our own Boy Scout camp. And after I got old enough, I became a lifeguard. I took lessons in lifeguarding, and we would go to Lone Rock, and the review again Green Brothers would come with a truck, a huge truck, and the restrictions weren't as severe as they are today. For instance, you can't ride an open truck today, but you could then. And we'd take all our gear and our tents and everybody, we could get in the thing and then some more cars and go to Lone Rock, Wisconsin. We stayed there for a week and camped on a slough, which is just south of Lone Rock, nice clean water. And it empties and it's actually part of the Mississippi River system, but there's no flowing water through it except just surface waters that go out to the Mississippi, out of Wisconsin. And I remember I was a lifeguard and one of the older scouts. I was 15.
What was your favorite merit badge to earn?
Let me think. Well, I think probably the athletic merit badge. I used to be bigger than I am now, and physically, and I like to run and do everything you do for the athletic merit badge.
What was your hardest?
Hardest? Oh, the hardest was a part of the athletic merit badge too, and that was racing. We had a strict time schedule, and you had to meet that time. And I've kind of forgotten whether it was. I know that we had dashes and we had long runs, but I don't know which one of them. I know that I had to really train for it and make it.
What do you remember about boys' life?
Boys' life, well, those people that could afford it took it. And in order to take it, your parents were, I don't know if you know it, but during that time, everybody was strapped for money. There was a real depression that came on in 1929 to 39, and well, all the way into World War II, or 42, and everybody was short of money here, everywhere else, and so everybody had a spare job. I delivered papers and saved enough nickels so that selling Saturday Evening Post and get enough money together to buy a subscription. And I liked the magazine because it had wonderful stories, action stories, and a lot of them true. I mean, the fellows that wrote the story did a little research, and for instance, I learned all about a guy named Scipio Africanus, who was a Roman general, and he had the war with the people from North Africa, and that sort of thing. There were, of course, all the entire Wild West scene. The big deal was to go to the movies. We always saved money to go to the movies together, but somehow it got spent, and we never did.
Are you a member of Order of the Arrow?
We don't think we had the Order of the Arrow then. You'll have to do some research on that. I don't remember anything about that.
Can you tell us about camping when you were there?
Camping? Yeah, our camps on the Lone River, at Lone Rock, were we had individual tents, and we had a big cook tent, which served as a meal tent too, but mostly we ate outside. One time we went and it rained for, I think, of the week we were there, it rained about 4 days, so it was pretty wet. A friend of mine, older guy, we had two fellows. We had one, his name was Utzig, his nickname was Balboa, and the other was lived down here on Garfield. Garfield was then dirt street, his name was Jumbo Gleason. He served as a cook, and I know that he made wonderful things. He'd make a roast beef, and then he'd holler that anybody that wanted bread, fried bread would come, and he would throw this piece of the bread into the gravy from the roast beef. And, yeah, food was terrific.
What were some of the patches like back then?
Pardon?
What were some of the patches like back then?
Patches?
Yeah, like the patches that you get for every mayor patch that you earn.
I don't know. I had, well, the badges are the same.
Well, yeah, like badges.
What was there a difference? What do
No,
you?
just like badges.
Oh, I don't think we had too many. I don't think it was that refined scouting. Not everybody you understand had a scout clothing. Most kids couldn't afford it. I mean, I don't know if I even had a scout shirt. Oh, I must have, because I went to the jamboree. But my parents probably bought that for me, but most of the kids had a piece of clothing. For instance, everybody wore a neckerchief, and the big deal, for instance, at the National Jamboree, was trading between scouts, with 27,000 scouts, and we had plenty of time off between activities, so that what it amounted to was getting to know other scouts from other places, and then everybody traded badges and you name it. I got accumulated quite a store, and then the guy came up and said, "How about trading your pile for some Indian wampum?" Well, nobody here we had arrowheads that we found, but nobody had Indian wampum, which is apparently a little bead drilled by an Indian and made into a necklace, and I agreed. And when I got the wampum, the guy shortchanged me by giving me paper wampum. When I got my wampum, that's all there was. And that whole pile went away. I had badges from every other scout that I traded with.
What was the handbook like back then?
Well, the handbook is blue. I don't have one. It was quite complete, and I don't know if you know it, but scouting apparently started because some scouts accompanied the head of the fellow who later became the chief executive. It was an Englishman, and he was in North Africa, and he had some boys there who were Boy Scouts, and I don't know if they are their type of boys that were Boy Scouts, and they were about to be raided by some fierce African warriors of some type or other, and he had the scouts all get their uniforms and march around the edge of the fort and try to create the impression that there were more than 5 or 6 soldiers there. And the scouts carried it off with great aplomb, and from then on he decided I'll start a whole group of scouts, and that's how it got to be, as I understand it, that's how it got to be like it is.
What was the worst thing that happened to you while you were in scouting?
Well, I had a couple of thrills, good and bad. We at our camp, I was lifeguard, and Buzz Fellows tried to swim. There was 300 yards about across the slough there, and he tried to swim it, and he panicked, but I fortunately had a boat there, and I went out and got him. And then kind of went on top of that, we dived off a bridge which was covered the slough and was near the entrance to the Wisconsin River. And a guy named Phil Olson, we were jumping off this bridge. And he wandered out into the mainstream of the Wisconsin and not realizing the current out there. And I had to go after him, and of course no boat. And it really scared me. It scared him so that I think part of his hair turned white up, I'm not sure, mistaken, yeah. He was so scared. And I managed to get him, and then we kind of went with the current downstream till we could get near the shore and swim in. That's probably the worst experience.
What differences do you see between scouting then and now?
Well, I think the scouting is more concentrated inside. Of course, I haven't been to your scout camps, and I never did get to go to the Quetico, which scouts go to now, and but the one down in New Mexico, I didn't get to go there. They didn't have that. Well, another best experience though was the jamboree. I talked to the Janesville Gazette, and they sponsored me, so my dad didn't have to bear any of the expense, and that's how I got there. And they paid for the incidentals. There were certain incidentals you had to pay for, and we went to New York, and after the jamboree we broke up and we went on to New York, and then during the jamboree we went down to Mount Vernon. It was the biggest travel. I'd never seen the world like I'd seen it at the jamboree, and we went upriver in New York. One of the experiences was, I'll never forget it. I went down the first day to breakfast at about 7 o'clock, and they brought in hot poppy seed rolls, and they had milk and orange juice and a white tablecloth, and boy, I mean, it was kind of living on the high. And then also my room, the room I was in on the second floor, overlooked dressing room of the ladies across the street, and there was showgirls, and of course they had looked right into their dressing room, and they didn't mind teasing us, and the scouts would all get in my room and appreciate the ladies showing they were girls. And then going, of course, to Niagara Falls. I couldn't believe it. Have you been there? Oh, it's wonderful. And it's a one-time thing, but it is a miracle. And we took a ferry from up a river ferry from New York up to Albany, and we took a train to Albany to Buffalo, and Niagara. Niagara's right there at Buffalo. And then after seeing the falls, we took an overnight ferry from Buffalo down to Cleveland. And there were 3 scouts to a room, a two-man room. But we crowded in, and sailing at night was really fun. And then I took a train home.
How did scouting help shape your life?
Well, how to shape my life, I think the most interesting thing was it was the first organization, aside from the family, that attempted to shape you and attempted to make you wake up and realize that you're an important person. You've got important work to do, and there are certain things you got to do, and that you can't, that you vow to do them, and you carry out your vow. For instance, be prepared. Well, be prepared. Always, it's a slogan on my Eagle badge. really important that you think ahead, try and think ahead. And I think it makes you be responsible. You feel a sense of responsibility not only to yourself, but to everybody else. This idea of helping a lady across the street, that's the basic idea. And I think it always will be in scouting. I think our fun activities were meeting with other scouts and competing against them. This is a pretty plain uniform, I think, according to that box over there. If you get it, it's got my Eagle badge, and they gave you 2 badges when you. I don't think we had to pay for them. There's one was silver. Because you can't wear that on your clothes. They got this little button that fit in. Everybody wore suits at some time or other. And if you wanted to wear a badge, why they got a little brass badge as well.
Thank you for doing this with us.
You bet, you bet. I'm proud of you Boy Scouts, I really am. I'm proud the movement has kept on, and I think it's essentially the same group